Selamat Zigi. My name is Nashin Mahtani and I am the director of Yayasan Peta Bencana, an NGO focused on community-based climate adaptation, committed to empowering every single resident to be able to participate in disaster risk reduction. This year, I also have the honor of representing Indonesian youth as part of the Y20 engagement group, as part of the G20 presidency. I was born and brought up in Jakarta, but I am currently living in Bali now. I chose Bali for many reasons, one of which is related to work, of course. Yayasan Peta Bencana's work started in Jakarta, but in 2020 we expanded to a national scale and are currently in the process of developing relationships and partnering with organizations across Indonesia. And so one of our priority areas is also Bali. So it made sense to move there, but Bali has also been close to heart for a very long time. I had the chance to study my bachelor's and master's degree in Canada, and after that also had the chance to complete a postgrad in Moscow. Both my bachelor's and master's degrees in Canada were in architecture. One of the reasons that I chose architecture was because I was aware that the building industry is one of the most energy-intensive industries, and that's something that I saw needed to change and something that I wanted to contribute to. But also when we think about the way we design cities, we design the way we interact with the environment, we design the way that we interact with other people, we are essentially designing lifestyles and habits, which can be huge contributors to addressing how we use energy and how we live together with other humans, with other species in more livable and joyful ways. I started university in Canada in 2009 and I left in 2015, came back to Indonesia, and then I went to Moscow in 2018 for just about 6 months for a short postgrad degree. I think as a resident of Indonesia, disasters are everybody's business. In some way or another, we all experience them, whether it's in the form of an inconvenience or some people experience them much more drastically. The first time my family had to evacuate because of flooding, I was less than 10 years old, but already at that time, I saw a lot of inequality around me, and this was something that I saw needed to change. And given the opportunities that I have had, it feels like I have a responsibility, and I know it is my responsibility to ensure that everyone has more equal access to be able to create better futures and access better futures. When I was less than 10 years old, that first major disaster was flooding in Jakarta. And yeah, at that time, my grandmother was living with us, so there was a difficulty of like, how do you evacuate in the middle of the night, you know, with old people, with young children? Of course, it's not a difficulty. I mean, I faced it directly, but seeing my parents have to coordinate all of that really sort of hit hard. But at the same time, I realized that we were still lucky to be able to move, whereas a lot of people aren't lucky. And so one of the main concerns for me was, how do we make sure that other people have more equal access to be able to adapt when such an event occurs? So Yayasan Peta Bencana was founded as an independent NGO in 2017, but our project had already started in 2013. And this is the commitment of Peta Bencana, is to make sure that every single resident is able to participate in an equal way in reducing risk from disasters. They're able to participate in an equal way in making decisions in their communities during emergency events, and that we can ensure there are equal ways for communities to be prepared for and adapt to climate change, which we know will affect us all. I think when we think more abstractly about architecture, it's about designing ways of living with our environments, ways of living with other people and with other species. And traditionally, we do this with physical infrastructures through the design of our cities and towns. But of course, with the penetration of technology, we've seen that technology also plays such a critical role in how we live with each other, how we interact with each other, how we interact with our environments. And so Peta Bencana is essentially thinking about the same architectural questions. How do we live with each other? How do we live in our environments, but using digital infrastructures? And so Peta Bencana is sort of the merge of this, using both digital and physical infrastructures to think about how to live with the new context of climate change, of artificial intelligence, of smartphones and technologies, and integrating all of these so that we can live more equally together. I have previously worked as an architect in several architecture firms, including Robert Stern Architects in New York, Arquitectonica in Los Angeles and Miami, and KPMG in Toronto, as well as a researcher and designer with MIT and the University of Waterloo. And then I now currently work as director of Yayasan Peta Bencana. There have been a lot of challenges that range widely from, how do we maintain a grassroots organization, access to funding, the continuity of our programs. But with all of the challenges, there's also a lot of joys in trying to figure out those challenges in a collaborative way through partnership with many different stakeholders, including government agencies, resident groups, local communities, first responders, and youth groups. And despite the many challenges, it's through working together that we can overcome these. Yayasan Peta Bencana is a result of a lot of different partnerships. Right now, we are primarily funded by USAID, Bureau of Humanitarian Assistance, and our main partners are BNPB in Indonesia, and Twitter, Mapbox, Pasang Mata. But we also partner with many different local communities across the full country because we are a small team, and we know that in order to address risk, we need to involve local knowledge, resident knowledge. And the best way to do that is to involve people who live in those places, who know their environments best. And so we partner with many different local communities across Indonesia and many different first responders groups that are specific to each province. We also are supporting the development of similar platforms in the Philippines, Vietnam, Hong Kong, and India. And in those countries, we are partnering with the respective governments and first responding agencies there. I think Indonesia's response to disaster and ability to cope with disasters has improved significantly since the 2007 tsunami. I think that was when the awareness of disasters really hit us really hard as a nation. And of course, a lot has improved since then. But of course, there's still a long way for us to go to ensure that there's equality in how we respond to disasters and that everyone is able to do so. So in 2021, I was selected as Forbes 30 Under 30 Asia under the category of social impact. And of course, it felt really great that our work at Peta Bencana was being honored at this scale. And of course, this is a recognition that is shared with the whole team, with all of our partners, and most importantly, with all of the residents of Indonesia who work with us to reduce risk together and are committed in the spirit of Gotong Royong. Honestly, I didn't anticipate it. It was a welcome surprise. And when I received notification that I had been nominated, of course, it felt very good because working in an NGO, it's a lot of commitment. It's a lot of hard work. And to have a global recognition, it's not just the recognition itself, but what does that recognition allow? Of course, it opened up chance for more partnerships for us to work at a global scale and to expand this work beyond the country. That requires awareness, and that's something that the Forbes platform facilitated. So in 2019, I was selected as one of 5 global finalists for the Global Citizen Cisco Youth Leadership Award. The award recognizes youth around the world who are contributing to addressing the elimination of poverty worldwide. Of course, it felt, again, very honored to be able to receive this global recognition and have this platform to be able to share our work from Indonesia to a global audience. There are many reasons that I wanted to be involved in the Y20 forum this year. I think one of the largest reasons was that often looking at political forums, I didn't see the voice of the people that I work with every day at Yayasan Peta Bencana being represented. That is, the communities who are most vulnerable to climate change. And I think the Y20 platform provides a great opportunity for youth to really be able to raise our voices. And this is the voice that I wanted to bring, a voice that I didn't see represented. I also don't see the scale of actions that are needed to address climate change. And this is something I feel very strongly about. And by participating in the Y20 forum, I hope this is just another area to be able to bring those concerns. Of course, in my day-to-day work, I address these concerns at a grassroots level, but it's a different scale to be able to contribute to this at a policy level. And this is one of the interests as well in joining the Y20. Before joining Y20, actually, I had just seen the call that was for applications, and it happened to be soon after COP26. And during COP26, I was very disappointed at the outcome. But then when I saw this call, I thought that either I can remain disappointed and frustrated, or I can try and do something about it and get involved at a policy level as well. And so I thought, why not try? And very grateful that I have the opportunity to voice these concerns at this global forum as well. The main role of the delegates is to represent the youth of Indonesia in the negotiation with the youth from the other G20 countries and formulate policy recommendations that we can pass to our G20 leaders that will be inputs for the G20 leader declaration. And so the Y20 has organized several pre-summits ahead of the final summit in July, and each of these summits has been hosted in a different location. The first in Palembang, second in Lombok, third in Balikpapan, and the last one in Manokwari. And one of the reasons to host all of these is so that we are able to directly engage with local youth in each of those areas and listen to and integrate their inputs into the recommendations that we will be developing, that we are in the process of negotiating with the other G20 youth delegates, and eventually make sure that the voices of all Indonesian youth are brought to the table in our negotiations and in our recommendations. Of course, before the summits, we knew that Indonesia is a large country and the concerns of youth are different based on where they're from. But I think after the pre-summits, it was a very direct recognition of just how much the youth are affected by the decisions made today, and I think just how deeply they feel the actions that are taken by the leaders, but also how incredibly insightful some of their recommendations are. And actually, they're extremely intelligent. But that intelligence comes from local knowledge. And so I think it was really important for us to attend all these summits, to speak to all of these youth, because we really had a chance to learn from a very local level what were the concerns that were felt deeply, and they vary across each province, and then think and learn together about ways to bring those ideas into a global forum. So really, when we hear this phrase, think global, act local, it's like, how do we align those concerns? Of course, the first thing we have to do is to understand the concerns that range across geography, that range across socioeconomic status, across cultures. And I think this was one of the biggest outcomes personally from the pre-summit. Honestly, I think there are more similarities than differences. Of course, at the face level, there are many differences culturally, and but I think one thing that Indonesian youth can really bring is there's such a rich heritage of local knowledge in living with environment, and that's something that we can really bring to the table, that richness of local knowledge, because also of the diversity of our environments. That's something I think very unique to Indonesia and something that we can share with the world. Ultimately, I think all humans, all youth want the same things. So in that way, we're very similar. We want to be happy, we want to be healthy. There are many types of local knowledge in Indonesia that can really help in reducing disaster risk, and all of them are important. The one story that I really like to share is when we were working with the communities in Mount Merapi. They shared to us that there's a community of monkeys that live at the top of the summit, and the villagers actually have conflict with those monkeys because they like to steal the crops. And so villagers don't really get along with the monkeys. But after the 2006 eruption, one of the villages started to build a relationship with the monkeys, because when volcanic activity starts, the monkeys are some of the first to know that something is going to happen. And so when the villagers build a trust with the monkeys by starting to feed them, by starting to give them food, the monkey had trust in that community and knew that when they need to evacuate, instead of going down all the other slope, they choose to go down that village. And so there's a relationship between the monkeys and the villagers now, that the villagers are the first to know because they see the monkeys running down, and actually now they are the ones who are informing the local emergency management agency, the BPBD, when something is about to happen. And so this is a really interesting study of how we can partner with other species and use local knowledge as a way to mitigate risk that's specific to a community, that's specific to a location, and really involve communities in participating in their own disaster reduction efforts. Another form of local knowledge it's also in Mount Merapi, is that when there's volcanic activity, there's one species of butterfly that will appear. It's a yellow color butterfly that's usually not there. And so these are also interesting factors. Maybe one of a more well-known local knowledge is that when there's activity, cattle are also among the first to know. So besides the monkeys, the cattle, because they can feel the tremors. And so when we were doing these research with the communities in Merapi, this is the type of local knowledge actually that we include in Peta Bencana, because people can report disasters, and even though traditionally scientific Western knowledge doesn't talk about the movement of cattle or the movement of monkeys, this is something we thought is very unique to Indonesia, and that's something that people understand and can share with each other as a very day-to-day form of communicating with each other about the disaster risks. And so these are some of the types of local knowledge that we enroll, and I think one of our goals in trying to elevate and bring back local knowledge as a legitimate, valid form of knowledge equal to all other types of scientific knowledge. I think youth have a very important role to play in reducing disaster risk. Because half of the world's population are youth under the age of 30, and often youth are the most affected during disasters. But youth are also active agents of change in their community. They are the ones who are involved in educating and raising awareness and advocating. And especially in the last few years, we have seen the impact that youth can have by advocating, by organizing. And so of course, there's a significant role that youth can play in educating about disaster risk. And in Indonesia particularly, I think in bridging that gap, in bringing back the awareness of local wisdom and integrating that into a much larger scale, and so that it's more commonly known among all people. The main goal as as a Sustainable Livable Planet track is to get our governments to commit to more actionable, committed, legally binding, and immediate action towards the climate crisis. And this year, the Y20 communique is really emphasizing a rights-based approach, emphasizing the need to prioritize the most vulnerable areas and communities so that we can address both climate and social equality together.